Hi, this is Shannon Perry, CEO of Audiotocracy Podcast Production. My pronouns are she, her, and if you know me, you know I'm a sucker for a furry face. Or finned, or feathered for that matter. I know there are other critter-based people out there, so I'm going to stop right now and tell you about the site doesthedogdie.com, which will make it much easier for you to choose what film to watch. You're welcome. In this episode, I'm interviewing Elisabeth Van Every, pronouns she, her, Senior Communications Specialist and Managing Editor for Pet Partners. She tells the stories of the important work Pet Partners therapy animal teams do. Whether it's providing a willing pair of ears for a shy reader, or a comforting presence during a medical procedure, or a completely non-judgmental shoulder to cry on after a trauma, animals are amazing companions in tough times. They help us heal, body and soul, and if you've been around an animal companion, you already know that. Elisabeth has an extensive background in the publishing industry and in providing informal education in nonprofit situations, so she's perfect for educating people on therapy animals and the human-animal bond that makes this such a powerful practice. She says she shares her home with a boisterous, affectionate German Shepherd dog, who she hopes can qualify as a therapy dog someday, and an elderly, cranky tuxedo cat, who never will. Listen up. Welcome, Elisabeth. Thank you so much for joining me here today for this podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
Oh, I'm super excited because I absolutely love the kind of work that you do. I think it's amazing, and you guys are just heroes.
Thank you.
People and the animals. I absolutely love the sort of things you do. So can you give us just a little bit of background on what is Pet Partners?
Pet Partners is one of the oldest therapy animal registry organizations. And what that means is we provide education, screening, and credentials for therapy animal teams. And a team is one human handler and one animal working together to provide therapeutic visits with people who can benefit from the effects of interacting with animals.
Okay, so in the situations you're talking about, the animal doesn't necessarily live with the person who is getting the help?
Correct. There's a lot of confusion in this field among service animals and emotional support animals and therapy animals. And the way that we like to describe it is service animals and emotional support animals are there to help one person or one household.
Okay.
Therapy animals go into the community and support many people.
Got it. So it would be a therapy animal. You might see it like a senior center or...
Yes, exactly.
Great. Okay.
Senior centers, hospitals, kids reading programs in schools and libraries.
Mm-hmm.
Those are probably the most common places, although they're by far not the only places that therapy animals visit.
Right. Great. Oh, I love that. I want to talk more about the reading thing, but we'll get back to that. I think that's just amazing and wonderful. So can you tell me what exactly is animal therapy?
So we don't use the term animal therapy
Okay.
or pet therapy.
Okay.
Those terms were popular in the field a couple decades ago when this was getting started,
Mm-hmm.
but within the field, they're considered outdated. The umbrella term for what we're involved in is animal-assisted interventions. And essentially that covers any circumstance where an animal is involved in providing an intervention or an interaction with a human for purposes of supporting their health and well-being. So that term is a little broad and clinical,
Mm-hmm.
but it does do a good job of covering the entire scope, because it's not just what we do. That also covers service animals, it covers emotional support animals, it covers therapy animals, it covers canines that work specifically for community interaction,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily canines that are doing specific police work. So there's a really broad range of things that animals can do in this regard.
Got it.
But we are specifically involved with the type of animal assisted interaction or intervention where the animal working with a human handler that they are bonded with go out into the community and to facilities where they are visiting with people to provide the benefits of interacting with an animal. And that can be everything from calming people,
Mm-hmm.
lowering their blood pressure, improving their response to pain, to simply brightening their day for a little bit.
Nice.
There's a broad range of things that therapy animals and their handlers working together can do to support people in this regard, because humans respond very well to interactions with animals, particularly to the ones that we consider pets, like dogs, cats, equines, things like that.
Right.
And it helps support human well-being to have those interactions on a regular basis.
Got it. So to me, the term intervention sounds like what happens in a crisis, but it's not necessarily just at a point of crisis. Is that correct?
That's correct. As I said, intervention is kind of a clinical term, and it's simply a term that's used in the broader healthcare field.
Got it.
To identify a treatment or an action that steps in to support the health of a human being. And that can be everything from a crisis. We do have teams that do crisis response work, but it can also be, oh, I'm having a stressful day at work and I feel my blood pressure going up. The therapy dogs are here today. I'm going to go pet the therapy dog for a few minutes, and I'll be calmer and more relaxed, and my blood pressure will be down after I have that interaction. So it's simply, we consider ourselves to be an adjunct to healthcare.
Sure.
This isn't just about the warm and fuzzy, although the warm and fuzzy is very important. So in that regard, that umbrella term of intervention is applicable, but certainly on a one-to-one basis, on a day-to-day basis, we're not talking about these very serious, intense health issues necessarily. We're talking about how good it feels if you get to pet or play with a dog or have a cat sit on your lap or something like that.
Yep. Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. And I certainly know for myself that having a dog is having an animal is almost critical to me. Like I don't function well if there's no animal in my life. So I understand.
Yeah, that is very true of pretty much all of our staff. I think that our staff members who do not have animals it's simply situational. It's not because they choose not to. Definitely the people who are involved in this field, in my experience, love animals, love the opportunity to spend time with animals and interact with animals. And therefore we understand why it can have such a positive effect to bring that to people in support of their overall health.
Yeah. It's we're going to go with it's self-care. Having a dog or a cat is self-care.
That's a good way to frame it.
Much more fun than a bubble bath, quite frankly. All right. So a lot of us see animals at work doing this kind of work, therapy or other kinds of interventions, but we're unclear how the animal is helping their person. So what kinds of things are the animals you work with doing to help, and the handler as well?
The most common way that our therapy animal teams do their work is they simply go and visit at a facility that they are interested in supporting in some way, like a hospital, a veterans care facility, a residential care facility, a senior center. And they're bringing the pleasure of interacting with the animal, of having a break from their day, of the benefits in mood and mental health that can come when you get the opportunity to pet and interact with an animal. And a lot of that is literally just the handler and the animal come in and visit with someone. In a hospital, they might go room to room. In a senior center, they might meet with a group of people in an activity room and just give people the opportunity to visit with the animal. Maybe a lot of handlers with dogs will have their dogs do a few tricks, or they might, toss a ball or play with a toy. Therapy cats often will just sit on people's laps or lie on their beds and give people the opportunity to pet them and interact with them.
Lovely.
When we work with some of our less common species, there's a novelty factor that can help break up. If you're in the hospital and you look up and you see a llama coming into your room, that's going to make a big change in your day. So a lot of it is simply about the interaction, the opportunity to do something different, to feel an animal's fur or feathers, because we do register some bird species, and just give them the opportunity to experience that non-judgmental affection and interaction that an animal brings. An animal doesn't care why you're in the hospital. An animal doesn't care if you're struggling with memory care issues or you have difficulty walking without assistance. The animal is just there to enjoy their time with you, and it's a nice way to kind of bring people out of their larger issues, particularly if they're dealing with serious health problems, and just enjoy that interaction and enjoy that connection with the animal.
That's so great. Yeah, you can't not be in the moment when there's a cat on your lap or a dog nearby. So
Yeah.
that's great. So what is your organization's role in the whole therapy process?
Our primary role through our therapy animal program is to train therapy animal handlers. I should say educate. We try not to use the word
Right.
train, because when you
Fair.
associate train with animals, people get a certain idea.
Right.
And we do not train animals, and we don't require specific training for animals. There are some obedience skills and responses with handlers that are necessary,
Right.
depending as appropriate to the species. But we don't actually do the training of the animals, but we do educate the handlers
Nice.
about the skills that they're going to need to do this work effectively, what they should look for in their animal, how to advocate for their animal while they're visiting, because the
Nice.
handler's role is to ensure that both the animal and the clients that they visit with are safe during the interaction.
Right.
Things like infection control, general safety procedures, and how to visit. You know, a lot of people are excited about the idea of taking their animals, but they're not sure how the interaction would work. So we provide them some education about that.
Nice.
When the handler has done that education, we do an evaluation, a screening of the team working together.
Nice.
And that is an in-person process. And it's essentially a series of exercises that simulate a relatively typical visit. And we're gauging things like how well the animal responds to distractions, how well they respond to meeting new people, how well they do if there are loud noises, if people who are moving in a non-typical way or using medical equipment, how they respond to that, how they do at things like if they encounter an unexpected item or food on the floor, and how the handler supports their animal throughout that process.
Nice.
And when the team passes that evaluation, that says they meet the standards of the Pet Partners program, they are qualified to register with us and to make visits under the auspices of our program, as long as they follow our program policies and procedures, because that's one of the other things that we educate the handlers in. And then when they register with us, we also provide them with liability insurance coverage, which is a big factor for facilities. That there's always concern about safety. Is something going, is the animal going to react badly? Is someone potentially going to get injured? That's extremely uncommon. That's what the evaluation process is for, is to gauge whether there is a risk of an animal reacting badly or the handler not managing a situation effectively. But we can't predict every single thing. So the liability insurance coverage is an additional level of reassurance for facilities and for the handlers as well, to make sure that they don't have to be concerned about the risk when they decide to visit.
Oh, that's great. I love that this is, everybody's being protected. It's all done so that everyone feels safe and comfortable and you can just enjoy the experience. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of conversation about what kind of animals are suited for this work, right? So we all know, we've all seen labs and retrievers out there, but not to be insulting or anything, but what breed of human being are you looking for when you're assessing someone to be a good trainer or a good handler? I'm sorry.
Yeah, a good handler. Yep. That's the preferred term that we use.
Gotcha. Thank you.
What we're looking for from a handler is someone who has a really strong bond with their animal. That is really the most important aspect, because, as I mentioned earlier, the handler's role is to advocate for their animal and to ensure that both the animal and the people they visit are safe.
Gotcha.
So having that strong bond with their animal will ensure that they recognize their animal's stress signals. They recognize if their animal is getting tired or wants to end a visit early. They recognize if their animal is being touched in a way they don't appreciate by the person they're visiting, and they can redirect and provide some guidance so that the client, that's the term that we use for the people being visited, so that the client isn't going to cause the animal to be stressed or upset. We want people who respond well to new information and instruction. That's an important aspect. As with any field that is fundamentally based in healthcare processes, Our procedures will evolve over time. We want people to be prepared for those to change if the circumstances change. If, for example, there is a global pandemic that is going to affect whether they can visit in person, and we have to
Uh,
adjust our policies and
right,
procedures for that.
right.
And we're looking for people who are passionate about this work, who are compassionate, who care about the effect that they are having on the people that they visit,
Mhm,
and who enjoy visiting with people and providing that interaction with people.
mhm,
Where not every handler needs to be someone who is extroverted and chatty all the time
mhm,
and
mhm.
wants to talk with everyone, but we want to ensure that handlers recognize that they have a role to play in this too. It's not just about taking your dog to the senior center
Right,
and letting the seniors interact with them. The handler also has a role in that process as well,
right.
and we want them to be conscientious about that.
That's great. That's great. I love that. Why are animals so good at this? Like, what is that bond between humans and animals that makes this such an effective way to handle stress situations or just make people feel happier?
A lot of it has to do with the fact that humans have built animals into our lives and our cultures.
Mm.
Dogs are far and away the most common therapy animals. That's just the way that it is.
Right.
And people will ask about that, and I'll say, well, it's because we built dogs to do this.
Right.
We built them to be responsive to us, to take guidance from us, to enjoy interacting with us.
Mhm,
And so that connection that comes with an animal that wants to associate with us, wants to interact with us, wants to have that connection with us for themselves
mhm.
is important to us as well.
Sure.
And one of the things that we talk about with regards to the animals is, yes, there are certain breeds of animals that are far more common when doing this work than others.
Mhm.
The vast majority of our registered therapy dogs are labs, goldens, and doodle mixes because we've developed those breeds to be good at this.
Yeah.
But we're not looking for a specific breed. We are looking for an animal that has the right temperament, that
Right.
really wants to interact with people, that enjoys having these experiences. You can train an animal to do most anything,
Mhm.
but you can't train them to have that natural affinity.
Right.
So that affinity is really important for the animal. And when the animal has that affinity and when they love interacting with someone, that will come through when they visit as a therapy animal.
Mhm.
Handlers talk to us regularly about how when they get their animals ready, a lot of them use a particular leash, or they have a therapy animal
Nice.
vest, or they have a particular carrier that they use. And when their animal sees that item come out, they get really excited because they know that they're going to work and they're going to get the opportunity to interact with
Oh,
people.
that's lovely.
And
Yeah.
that non-judgmental aspect where the animal just loves being with you, being petted, spending time with you has a lot to do with it as well, where you're getting the benefits of interacting with something that gives affection and doesn't give back criticism. You're getting the opportunity to have the physical touch, which has benefits.
Mhm.
Petting an
Mhm.
animal's fur has been shown to have effects on stress levels and brain chemicals.
Yeah.
And it's just a great opportunity. You know, a therapy dog isn't going to cure someone's cancer, but they can make it easier for someone to go through treatment for their cancer.
Right. Right.
And that's the real goal here, is to provide
Huge.
that emotional and psychological support in a way that asks very little of the client.
Mhm.
Many people who are dealing with health issues, that's a big part of their lives, and they're putting a lot of energy into that.
Mhm.
And having a type of treatment that simply asks them to interact with an animal that enjoys their company
Mhm.
is really beneficial because it doesn't require anything additional from them.
Right. Right. Oh, I just think that's so wonderful. It's so compassionate. It's so smart to think that someone, like I think you said maybe in a different conversation that animals can help reduce your pain, your
Mhm.
sensations of pain. So if you're sitting undergoing chemotherapy or some other kind of process, having an animal nearby to just sort of distract you from it and
Yep.
help soothe that path, I just think that's wonderful. That's amazing. How did you get involved in this?
I came to Pet Partners when I was returning to Seattle. I am a native born Seattleite, from
Rare
a few
breed.
years living on the East Coast,
Nice.
and I was seeking a new position. I was looking to get involved in something that was nonprofit,
Mhm.
because that's something that has a lot of value for me. And a friend of mine happened to be employed at Pet
Oh,
Partners
nice.
and knew that I was looking and said, "We've got a position open in our program operations department, which are the people who deal with the registration process." And I went ahead and applied and was chosen for the position. And for my first 3 years with this organization, every workday was interacting with our volunteers, answering their questions,
Wow.
helping them get the information and the screening and the credentials that they need to do their work.
Mm-hmm.
And it just has been so rewarding for me. I've since moved into other roles in the organization,
Mm-hmm.
but still being part of helping this type of interaction get out to people, helping people learn more about why this is beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
helping clarify what therapy animals do,
Mm-hmm.
how they're different from other types of animals, and most importantly for me, being able to tell the stories of how these interactions affect people's lives is just incredibly rewarding for me. And I love every opportunity I have to talk about this and to share the effects that this work has.
Well, what a perfect segue, as that is my next question. Can you tell us one of those stories or a couple of those stories?
Um, One that is particularly meaningful to me, both as an employee of Pet Partners and on a personal level. I'm married to a disabled veteran,
Mm-hmm.
and I have seen him benefit from therapy animals as part of the treatment that he has received. And a few years ago, I helped the VA facility in Connecticut with an event they were having where they were hoping to have some therapy animal teams visit. And one particular team in the area went to the event. And when it was over, she contacted me and she said, "I had the most amazing experience at this event."
Oh, nice.
The event was a resource fair for veterans to help them connect with therapies, with community resources, with things that they might need. And one veteran who was disabled, he had a variety of both physical and mental health issues
Mm-hmm.
and had been unhoused for several years,
Oh,
had come to this resource fair to try and get some additional support.
great.
And the fair helped connect him with the departments that he needed to talk with, help get him connect with a therapist and get him set up for the physical health treatment that he would need.
Oh.
And then he came to the booth where the Pet Partners teams were. And this particular team, the dog is a Labrador Retriever Basset Hound mix.
Oh,
Very
nice.
he has a very distinctive look.
Right.
And the veteran said, "He looks like the dog that I lost recently."
Oh,
His own dog had passed away recently,
oh.
and this dog, whose name was Bo, reminded him of the dog that he had had. And the handler said, "You're welcome to come in. You can pet him if you'd like to sit with him and hug him. He'll be happy with that." And the veteran ended up spending about 45 minutes just lying on the ground with this dog,
Wow.
hugging him and petting him and talking to the dog. And his female companion told the handler that he was finally getting to the point where he was getting the assistance he needed. He was about to move into supported housing, and just having this opportunity kind of at the end of this day where they were trying to get all of these resources sorted out,
Mm-hmm.
just to spend time
Mm.
with this animal who was happy to be there and happy to let him pet and cuddle was profoundly rewarding. And the handler said, "This is one of the most meaningful visits I have ever made.
Oh,
And I am
that's
so happy that we had the opportunity to do this."
oh.
And so it's meaningful in itself, but it's also meaningful to me as a Pet Partners employee and as someone who is married to a disabled veteran to to be able to see the results that we can have for that population and know what an incredible difference we can make.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
the dog didn't get this veteran into housing, didn't set up his treatment,
Right.
but this dog provided him with the opportunity to recognize there's still safety in the world, there's still comfort in the
Yeah.
world, and his life is going to get better as a result of being at that event that day. And it is I pride myself on being a writer, but it is difficult to find
Mm-hmm.
profound enough words for experiences like this. And that's why this work is so incredibly rewarding
Yeah.
for me.
Oh, I can't even imagine. That's just, animals are so grounding and so comforting. And they, I know that when I'm feeling emotionally, upheavaled to make up a word, there's nothing better than, a little time with my dog. Go
Mhm.
for a walk, lie on the floor, get my face licked until I laugh. She's just amazing. So
Yep.
yeah.
And those things are exactly the same kind of effects that therapy animals can have
Yeah.
for people who are in circumstances where they may not be able to be with their own animals.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if they're in a hospital or in residential care where they
Right.
can't have pets at
Right.
universities,
Mm-hmm.
which is another place where a lot of our teams visit. All these opportunities they have to make that connection with people and remind them, oh yeah, this time spent with a dog or a cat or a rabbit
Mm-hmm.
has benefits to me
Right.
in reminding me that I value this connection, even though I don't have my own animal with me.
Right. Right. There are still dogs in the world.
Yep.
So, that's amazing. That's really quite wonderful. Can you tell me a little bit about the reading program? I'm a big reader, a former English major at college. I'm
Mhm.
always really curious about how that piece works.
Absolutely. Our reading initiative is called Read With Me, and it was developed because there is a fairly large body of research and study that demonstrates that reading to an animal helps support literacy for young readers and new readers and struggling readers.
Wow.
And there are two ways in which this works. One way is that it provides a motivation. A lot of young readers, particularly if they're struggling with their
Mm-hmm.
reading,
Mm-hmm.
may be very uncomfortable to reading out loud. They may not be motivated to read, and having the animal there provides them with a non-judgmental audience.
Nice.
It's the dog doesn't care if you mispronounce a word.
Right. Right.
The dog is just happy to lie there with you, have, be petted. It's very common for kids to show pictures to the animals while they're reading because it's an interactive thing.
It's just
And
polite.
the animal may or may not be interested, but it
Right.
it provides that motivation for the child to engage more deeply with the book.
Mm-hmm.
And it also serves as a reward because either during the session, you can pet or show pictures to the dog or cat or rabbit. Small mammals are relatively common for us in reading programs
Mm-hmm.
because they tend to sit quietly,
Mm-hmm.
and smaller pets can be less intimidating for children who may not have a lot of experience with dogs or cats.
Sure. That makes sense.
But at the end of their reading session, a lot of children get the opportunity to pet and play with the animal for a few minutes.
Nice.
A child who may be reluctant, they're like, oh, I don't want to go to the library. I don't want to have to read a book today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you go to the library and read a book today, you get to pet the therapy dog. That would certainly motivate me.
100%.
I have a dog of my own, but if you told me you go to the library and you read a chapter of a novel and I'll let you pet a cat, I will do it.
I'm all over that. That sounds
And
amazing.
there is research that demonstrates that when children have access to this kind of program, it supports their retention, it supports their motivation to read,
Mm,
and it helps increase their overall reading proficiency. And
yeah.
these kinds of programs are very, very popular. We are not even close to the only therapy animal organization that does this kind of thing,
Right.
but we're really pleased that we can be part of it and bring this particular type of intervention, there I am using that word, to this audience and help support their well-being in this way.
Yeah.
People may not think of literacy as a health issue, but it is
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
you do need a decent level of reading comprehension to negotiate our society. So
Absolutely.
being able to support that helps support children in their lives
Oh,
overall
100%.
because it
Yeah.
gives them additional skills.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I can imagine, even just the act of petting the animal while you're reading, an activity that is often stressful for you if you're struggling,
Mhm.
like even that just helps take the stress out of it. And
Yep.
It makes it something that's fun to do rather than something that's embarrassing or, potentially
Mhm.
traumatic. That's
Yeah,
just,
that's
that's
yes,
amazing.
you encapsulated that really well.
Yeah.
That's a big part of why this works for so many children who
Right.
are struggling with reading.
Right. I was just reading a book which was discussing how humans are wired for story, and that one of the ways children build up a reserve of empathy and learn empathy is by reading, because you put yourself quite literally in the shoes of the person who's experiencing the situation in the book. And so I just think that plus dog, cat, pig, llama, whatever, hamster has got to be just, an exponential multiplier of that effect. Like how great
Yeah.
that experience is for kids and for society to have kids who are learning those really wonderful and important skills.
Yeah, and we value this particular aspect so much that, when everything shut down last year,
Mm-hmm.
all the reading programs had to shut down,
Mm-hmm.
and
Of
we
course.
launched a new project called We Are All Ears, which set up a framework for children to read to their pets at home or to other pets or to the squirrels in their yard or to stuffed
I
animals
love that.
because there are advantages to a structured program
Mm-hmm.
where the handler is working with the teacher or librarian,
Mm-hmm.
but there are also benefits if you're just lying in bed and you want to read to your own dog, that you still get a lot of the same benefits of that.
Right. Right.
And I actually tried to use this. I have a child I consider part of my chosen family who is not the strongest reader.
Right.
Don't have any kids of my own, but I have lots of nieces and nephews,
Great.
so to speak.
Of course.
And this kid loves dogs, but the family isn't able to have a dog of their own. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, we'll set up an opportunity for you to read on a video call to my dog,
Oh, so great.
and you can at least see my dog and interact with him through that method. So
Oh,
that
lovely.
that was a great opportunity to expand the effects of this, even
Nice.
though the pandemic meant that children couldn't do their structured reading
Right.
programs.
But they didn't lose out. So that's
They didn't lose.
wonderful. That's really wonderful. It seems like the success of your program is in many ways measured in things that don't happen. Someone didn't have an emotional crisis because they were able to alleviate it. They didn't, fail reading in school because you helped alleviate that. Is it difficult sometimes to prove the value of such a program when it's measured in things that were averted?
That is one of the challenges that we have,
Mm-hmm.
and we believe very strongly that the work that we do should be based, when possible, in clinical evidence
Mm-hmm.
and measurable outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Our organization was founded by a psychologist and two veterinarians,
Oh,
and
nice.
they valued that clinical basis.
Mm,
And that's why I said something earlier about how what we do is not just about the warm and fuzzy. The warm and
right.
fuzzy is absolutely important. It's a big part of where that connection happens.
Right.
But we also want to ensure that we are providing something that is genuinely beneficial and that there are ways to measure that. One of the things that we do in support of our field is to provide grants for research that will help study whether we have these effects.
Wonderful.
Uh, there have been studies showing things like reduction in blood pressure,
Right.
in
Right.
increase in positive hormones, reduction in stress hormones. For both the human and the animal, there have been a couple of recent studies where they've measured hormones through salivary tests for both the client and the animal,
Oh, wow.
which is useful.
Nice.
And things that are a little harder to measure quantitatively, but
Mm-hmm.
things like motivation for treatment.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, do you respond better to your treatment protocols and your treatment plan if you're visiting with a therapy dog versus
Mm-hmm.
not having that intervention?
Mm-hmm.
A recent study that involved several Pet Partners teams out of Washington State University demonstrated that what they classified as at-risk students, which are students who were struggling and in danger of failing classes,
Right.
did better overall and had an increase in executive function
Wow.
when they had the opportunity for a weekly visit with a therapy animal. And the animal was not directly involved in their studies.
Mm-hmm.
It was just an opportunity to take some time, relax with the animal, understand that things are going to be okay, and that provided them with some additional emotional and psychological support and space
Right.
to go, okay, I do have the capacity to get through my studies, to do the work that I need to do to ensure
Mm-hmm.
that I'll succeed in this class. And that was a really well-structured, long-term study that we were really proud to be involved in.
That's amazing.
So there is evidence out there,
Mm-hmm.
and we are doing what we can to provide more of it, because we think that when there is evidence underlying this, more people will accept this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've certainly seen, I mean, particularly over the last 2 years, we've seen a dramatic increase in interest in therapy animals. There are a lot of school districts that are now building therapy animals into their
Perfect.
yearly budgets. We're
Mm-hmm.
seeing a lot of law enforcement agencies choose to add therapy animals, community support dogs, as part of changing how they interact with their communities. But there are still places that are holdouts where they're concerned about, it's just window dressing, that it's just the warm and fuzzy,
Right.
that there
Right.
isn't an actual measurable effect.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime we can support research that will show us, does this have effects? Does it support the population that you're working with?
Right.
We're doing that much more to help bring this intervention to people.
Right. Yeah. I think, any of us who's had a positive interaction with an animal knows all the benefits, but it's to be able to go to someone with these actual numbers and say, look, I like workplaces. I think workplaces are becoming
Mhm.
more open about that. They're having therapy animals or days when there's, invitation open. So I think it's great to be able to prove this makes sense, to have this, that you'll have a happier, more productive staff that takes fewer sick days.
Yeah, and we pioneered the first widespread animal-assisted workplace well-being program.
Oh, wow.
That was one of the that's one of the things that I did with Pet Partners, is I helped develop that program, and then there is now another person who runs that. But it was a great opportunity to see every week when we'd have our teams go to one of these locations, we'd get feedback from the staff there that, oh, it made my day and it helped bring my stress down.
Yeah.
We had one woman who specifically said, I have high blood pressure and I have to go get checked
Mm-hmm.
on a regular basis to ensure that all the measures are working.
Mm-hmm.
And on one particular day, I was scheduled to go to the clinic to get my blood pressure checked, and the therapy dogs were there. So I stopped in for 5 minutes and petted one of the dogs, and then went and got my blood pressure checked. And they said they were really pleased that my blood pressure was so much lower.
See, I just want dogs everywhere. I'm one of those people who's like, if I could take them into the grocery store, into the restaurant, I would totally do it. But I understand that's not everybody's preference. But yeah, I absolutely love having animals around me. So if you could tell the lay audience something about what you do, what is the one thing you would really want people to know or to do or not do?
I would love to get people to understand the differences among the three most common types of animal-assisted interventions.
Okay.
And we talked about that early on, that there is a difference between service animals, which have an actual legal definition,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and have specific requirements to meet that definition. Emotional support animals, which they have a legal definition in a housing related context.
Okay.
But there is not a lot of law around emotional support animals.
Right.
But the intent for an emotional support animal is to provide emotional and psychological support, not necessarily services,
Got it.
to an individual to help them manage their mental health.
Right.
So those are both types of support animals. And as we said, they serve one person or one household,
Right.
versus what we do, which is a therapy animal. And a therapy animal goes out and provides that service to the community. They are not limited to one individual. And therapy animals also do not have any specific legal rights or definitions.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take your therapy animal to the grocery store unless the grocery store says it's okay.
Right.
But they are different from just a pet,
Right.
in
right.
that they have had this screening to confirm that they and their handlers working together can provide these kind of interactions safely.
Right.
So understanding the difference between those things and using the terminology consistently is the
Mhm,
thing that
mhm.
I would love to have more people understand. And also understand that therapy animals don't need to be anything special or specific aside from that affinity and interest in
Right.
interacting with people.
Right.
There's often a thought, there are organizations out there that will offer you therapy animal training courses
Mm,
where you're paying $400 for an obedience course.
mm. Right. Right.
And it doesn't offer, they'll give you a certificate at the end and say, well, now your animal's a therapy animal. Well, no, your animal took a course with you.
Right. Right.
So the important part of becoming a therapy animal team is that education for the handler and the screening and credentialing process.
Right.
That's what you need to be a therapy animal team. If you're looking for an emotional support animal, that's completely different from what we do.
Right.
We are not involved in that at all.
Right.
And we are also not involved with service animal training, which does. Service animal training requires an extremely high degree of training and preparation.
Right.
Although there again, you want to be sure that the animal has the right temperament.
Right.
We have a number of registered therapy dogs who washed out of service dog training programs because almost always because they were too friendly.
Right. Right. I get that. Yep. Yep. That makes sense.
So there is that big difference there. So
Right. Okay.
if your animal has the right temperament and you're willing to do the work, anyone can be a therapy animal handler with their pet.
Right.
As long as they have those few aspects, and you don't need to do anything special.
Mhm.
Definitely prepare for
Mhm.
it. Do some research, figure out
Right.
what's available near you,
Right.
and that these credentials are important for ensuring that everyone can be safe.
Yeah.
And that you don't have liability.
Mhm.
But beyond that, you don't need to be special. Just understand the differences between those three types of
Right.
animals.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's great. That's really important, I think, for people to know. Most of us know don't approach a dog with a vest, but that's pretty much the limit of or don't try to pet a dog with a vest, I guess.
A lot of our animals do wear vests to
Mhm.
identify them as therapy animals.
Got
We
it.
don't require it, but many handlers choose. A lot of handlers also choose bandanas, which
Mhm.
can be a little friendlier.
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
In any circumstance where you encounter an animal in a public space,
Mhm.
just ask.
Always. Right. Yeah.
People who are working with service dogs typically identify their dogs as service animals and will say don't pet or whatever.
Mhm.
Many of our handlers have patches or sliders on their pets' leashes that say please pet me,
Nice.
because they want to reinforce that yes, you
Right.
can pet this animal.
Nice.
But if there's ever any confusion and you want to pet a dog or a horse or whatever in public, just ask and the handler
Right.
will tell you if it's okay or not.
Right. That's always good practice, right?
Yes.
For any
You know,
animal out there. Yeah.
my husband is one of those people who has sucker written on his forehead in dog language,
Yeah. Me
and
too.
95% of dogs love him instantly. But every single time he will say, "Can I pet?"
Yeah.
And if the handler says it's not a good idea, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anytime you're curious about it, most of the time therapy animal handlers will be glad to let you pet their dogs.
Nice. Nice. I love it. So how can people get involved and help?
The best way to get started, if you're interested in becoming a therapy animal handler with your pet, is to visit our website at petpartners.org. And we have a tab there labeled volunteer.
Awesome.
And all the information that you need about what our program requires, what you should do to prepare, what you should expect is available there. We also have an entire staff of people who are dedicated to supporting prospective and current volunteers.
Awesome.
And they are happy to answer questions, provide more information, help guide through the process. And that is something that helps us stand out from some of the other organizations in this field.
Mm-hmm.
This field is both enormous in terms of the impact we can have, but also very small in terms of how many organizations are involved in it and
Right.
how much funding they have.
Gotcha.
And we are fortunate that we are able to provide this staff support for our volunteers. Not every therapy animal organization can do that.
Right.
People will sometimes find that even though they really want to do this work, it's not quite the right fit for their pet or may
Mhm.
not be the right fit for them.
Mm-hmm.
If they still want to support the work that we do, we're involved in advocacy work that helps educate people
Mhm.
about therapy animals specifically and animal-assisted interventions generally.
Mhm.
And there are ways that people can help with that educational work, help with informing their lawmakers at every level about
Great.
the benefits of therapy animals
Great.
and what is needed to expand access and ensure that people can be safe
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
good standards for the field. And we are a nonprofit organization, so if people are interested in supporting our work and don't have the right animal or aren't interested in becoming volunteers,
Mm-hmm.
we welcome donations because those
Awesome.
help register
Mm-hmm.
the teams that we work with. Our teams do pay some fees involved with their registration,
Mm-hmm.
but those fees only cover about 15%
Right.
of the costs involved.
Right.
So every donation helps bring another therapy animal to someone who can benefit.
That's fabulous. That's really important. What if I run an organization that I think would benefit from having visits? How do I get in touch with you to set that up?
We have a contact form on our website,
Okay.
which again is petpartners.org. We also have some information about specifically for facilities that are interested in having visits, everything from if you're a hospital looking to set up a visiting program at your system, which is very common. A lot of hospital systems do have their own internal programs,
Nice.
which work with our volunteers because our screening and credentialing process takes a step out of the process for the hospital system.
Nice.
They can know if they work with our teams that those issues are covered.
That's great.
To individual facilities, a small senior center or a library that might be interested, we have an opportunity to post a request for teams based on where you are and what
Okay.
you're looking for. And we also have a dedicated program for assisting with animal-assisted workplace well-being opportunities
Fantastic.
where people can work with us to bring in therapy animals for their staff.
Great. So lots of interaction points.
Yes.
And we will make sure that we list your website in our show notes. So anybody who wants to get involved or find more information or donate will have the opportunity through our show notes. So if people are interested in animal therapy, whoops, that's the wrong term, right? What's the correct term?
Animal-assisted interventions.
Yes.
Or if you want to be a little more specific and a little less clinical, therapy animal visits.
Therapy animal visits. There we go. For people who are interested in therapy animal visits, what is a really good resource you'd recommend in addition to your website? Your website is already very rich with materials, but is there any other resource that you would recommend?
For organizations that are considering incorporating therapy animals into their facility activities or their programming, there is a website called standardsofpractice.org.
Okay.
That provides information on what the basic levels of standards, expectations, et cetera, for a facility should be.
Okay.
For people in general, there are a lot of consumer level publications, many of which we have been involved in. I will not deny that.
That's awesome.
We have a blog where we regularly publish articles about what's going on in the field. We have a magazine that we publish twice a year. There's an author named Andrea Beetz, Beetz, who has written a lot about the impact of animal-assisted interventions.
Great.
And what people can expect. And it's accessible language. It's not clinical. A lot of the work in this field has been clinical. It's in very academic language, but Andrea Beetz's work is more accessible to a lay audience.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Is there anything that I have not asked you that I should have, or anything you'd like to add?
Just that I think it's wonderful that this field exists, that there are so many ways in which it can operate. We aren't involved in things like equine therapy or any of the more specific detailed types of therapy, but it all falls under that same umbrella, and it all flows from the concept that this bond that we have with animals is so powerful that it can have remarkable and noticeable effects on our health. Absolutely. And again, everything from inspiring people to pursue therapy that makes their lives better to bringing somebody a smile and a few laughs when they interact with a therapy animal at work in the afternoon. One of the things that we talk about a lot is the human-animal bond, which is the basis for all of what we do for the entire field, is that connection between humans and animals and the ways in which it can support our health and well-being. And I have been doing this work for more than 7 years, and I never get tired of hearing the impact that we're having on people. There is no bad story. I love every story that I get. People will sometimes say, they're like, "Oh, you're probably tired of hearing this." No, I never get tired of hearing it. It's powerful and it matters, and I'm really grateful that I get to be part of it.
Well, we are very grateful for you. Thank you, because it's just it's such a win-win-win, right? There's no bad here.
There
The
there
clients
really
win,
isn't.
the animals win, the handlers win. It's just
Yep.
all good.
Everybody comes away from this with a sense that something worthwhile and valuable and important is being achieved, and
Absolutely.
that there is nothing bad about that, especially in the world we're living in right now.
Yeah. So go adopt your next best friend. find an
Animal-assisted intervention opportunity.
Thank you. I really should be taking notes. I'm kind of relying on the recording to get this correct. Thank you so much for the work you do, Elisabeth Van Every of Pet Partners. This has been a fabulous conversation. I could listen to you tell me happy stories forever, because it just makes me so happy. Thank you so much for the work that you and your organization do. This is fabulous. I want everyone to know.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell people about it. This is one of the things that I love doing in my work, is getting to share how we have this impact, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Many, many thanks to Elisabeth Van Every and everyone who works with and for Pet Partners. Be sure you check them out at petpartners.org, where you can find information about volunteering, advocating, and donating. So here are some of the resources Elisabeth would like you to know about. The Standards of Practice website that she mentioned is actually therapyanimalstandards.org. There's the writings of Andrea Beetz, Beetz, and Elisabeth also asked me to include Dr. Aubrey Fine, who is one of the leading scholars and practitioners in this field. You can find him at aubreyhfine.com. That's aubreyhfine.com. Be sure to check the links in the show notes. If you have an animal who gives you the benefit of that human-animal bond, please give him or her a treat from me. And remember, if you think a podcast might be a good option for your business or organization, take advantage of our free consultation at audiotocracy.com. That's AUDIOTOCRACY.com. See you next time.